or soon thereafter, as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application number 534-24, John and Patricia Martin. Permission to leave shed having side yard of 3.5 feet and rear yard of 3.8 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Residence A District, west side of Lincoln Drive, 329 feet south of Stuyvesant Road, Oakdale.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Len Crick, Island-Wide Permit Services, office at 86 Center Street, Ronkonkoma. When the Martins positioned their shed in a corner of their rear yard, they misplaced it by a matter of inches. They apologized for this minor mistake and asked for the board's forgiveness in granting the application.
Okay, is there any questions from the board on this?
No questions.
Planning, any comments? No comments. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 535-24, Caitlin O'Connor, trustee of the Bergen 2021 Irrevocable Trust. Permission to leave pool patio having rear yard of 5.5 feet instead of required 6 feet, pool equipment having side yard of 4 feet instead of required 6 feet, and shed having side yard of 1.8 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, north side of Chicago Court, 395 feet east of Chicago Avenue, Bay Shore.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin O'Connor, and I'm the trustee of the 27 Chicago Court in Bay Shore. And these are my parents who own the house currently.
Your address, Ms. O'Connor, is the address?
No, so the house is in a trust.
What is your address?
My address is 27 Beverly Street in Islip. You're welcome.
Anything you'd like to tell us about the application?
I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Oh, myself? Oh,
Yeah, we're kind of new at this.
I'm sorry.
You're all allowed to speak. If you're going to speak, you just need your name and address.
Oh, okay. So I'm the one that's on the trustee. So I'm the trustee for the trust. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know much about it. That's why my parents are here. So the reason why I'm here is because my name was on here. So
Would you like to say anything?
yes, they would like to talk, if that's okay.
Give us their name and address.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
I'm Linda Bergen, 27 Chicago Court, Bay Shore. We're here because of, well, there's a few things. One, my shed, the equipment for the pool, and then part of the sidewalk is a foot off. So, yeah. And when we did it, we kind of believed what the guys did. I didn't even pay attention to them doing the equipment because I thought they knew where it went. They started just digging holes, putting pipes in the ground.
Questions from the board on this?
No.
Do you have any comments? Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, I'll take a motion.
You sure?
Say sure.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Application number 536-24, Michael Medina and Timothy Lustig. Permission to leave hot tub having side yard of 10.8 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence A District, south side of Deer Park Street, 89 feet east of Howells Road, Bay Shore.
Hi, good evening. It's Michael Medina, 10 Deer Park Street, Bay Shore, New York.
And you just here on the hot tub, sir?
Yes.
Any questions from the board on this?
No questions.
No. Planning, any comments on this? No comment. Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, I'll take a motion. Say sure.
Second.
All in favor? Application's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Application number 534-24, James and Teresa Edmonds. Permission to leave in-ground pool having front yard of 19.3 feet instead of required 20 feet. Pool patio having front yard of 9.5 feet instead of required 15 feet. Patio having rear yard of 0.8 feet instead of required 4 feet. Rear yard landscaping of 31% instead of required 40%. Retaining wall 1.8 feet high, having second front yard of 2.8 feet, and on front and rear property lines not having a required setback of 4 feet each, and driveway having side yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, northwest corner of Woodlawn Avenue and Lakeshore Drive, Ronkonkoma.
Good evening. James Edmonds, Teresa Edmonds. We are the owners and residents of said property,
What is said property for the record?
145 Woodlawn Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York.
So you got a few things here for us, but they all seem to be okay. Any questions from the board on this?
We were at 30% was the list. My last analysis.
Planning, any comment?
On rear yard
Is there
landscape.
anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Okay, then I'll take a motion.
Motion, we approve the application, including the rear yard landscaping.
All in favor? Aye. Application's granted, sir.
Thank you very much.
Application number 538-24, Palo Figueredo, permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1. Residence AA District, north side of Tremper Street, 912.25 feet west of Broadway Avenue, Holdrow.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We are here tonight to establish a two-family, family use only, and the application is under medical. We have submitted a doctor's note and the required documentation to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Have the documentation is for the owner and his mother.
Yes.
Any questions, from the board, on this? Planning, any comments? No comment. No. Does anyone else would like to be heard in this application? No. Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion, we approve the application for a period of 3 years.
Favor? Aye. Application's granted.
Thank you.
Application number 539-24, Anthony and Melissa Harris, permission to erect two-story addition 7.2 by 34.2, leaving front yard of 19.9 feet instead of required 25 feet, total side yards of 22.74 feet instead of required 28 feet, and floor area ratio of 34.58% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, east side of Redmond Avenue, 200 feet north of Tilly Street, Bay Shore.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 231 Islip Avenue, Islip, New York. We are here today because the property owners would like to erect a two-story addition. The addition is going to be about 7 foot wide, 34 feet in length, which is the length of the property. And that requires them to leave a front yard of 19.9 feet instead of the required 25 feet. We were able to locate a couple of cases where the front yard setback, even more deficient than what we are requesting, was approved by the board. We have previous approvals ranging from 12.9 feet to 13 feet, 14 feet, 18 feet, where we are requesting 19.9 instead of the 25 feet. We are also here for the total side yards of 22.74 instead of 28 feet. Again, we were able to ascertain some prior ZBA approvals. We have approvals ranging from 21.3 feet, 23.4 feet, and 27.7 feet for a total side yard. And the last item here is the FAR of 34.58%. So with this one, we had to do a little bit more digging as far as precedent in the area and breaking down the FAR to see what is bringing the number to 34.58%. We did find 2 cases with percentage. However, the percentage that was granted was high, but the FAR code has since changed. So the number that was granted isn't actually what the FAR would be as of today. So the one grant was 35.59%, but it included accessory structures. Under today's code for FAR, if the accessory structure is under 500 square feet, we wouldn't include it. So that would bring that FAR down to 31.9%. And we have another one that was granted at 33.7%. Again, with today's FAR code, that was reduced to 30.1%. And then we have a house right behind ours, 148 Panadequate. This house was not before the board. However, we were able to get a copy of the floor plans that were filed in the 90s, and that FAR was calculated at 36%. So when we took a look at what was actually bringing the FAR, it seems that the addition would be in line with those previous grants, even at the reduced rates. And the problem here is really the front covered porch that is bringing us over to that high number. So the porch itself is 147 square feet, and it accounts for 3% of the FAR. The porch is 7.2 feet in width. If that porch were 6 feet in width and was reduced by that 1.2 feet, it actually wouldn't even have to be included in the FAR and our okay. And the FAR would be reduced from 34.5 feet to 58 to 31.58, which is in line with the prior grants. Not get rid, we can reduce it by the 1.2 feet.
That contract is there building anyway. And what would that bring the FAR down to? It's gotta be 31.
31.58%. It would reduce it by the 3%. Yes, it's 1.2 feet. I have my property owners here, and they have agreed to reduce the front porch by 1.2 feet to bring the FAR down to 31.58.
We're looking to change the floor of the meeting to 31.5.
Yes.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
We've had a request for an adjournment of the next application. Is anybody here on the application of 540-24, Joseph Williams? The applicant has requested that hearing be adjourned to the next one, September 24th.
I'll make a motion to adjourn it to September 24th.
Second.
All in favor?
Application number 541-24, NYU Langone Health, 712 Main Associates LLC. Permission to install secondary facial sign not visible from main thoroughfare, having area of 24 square feet instead of permitted 12 square feet. General Service Transitional District, south side of Montauk Highway, 325 feet east of South Bay Avenue, Islip.
Good evening. John Ricotta, RICOTTA, representing NYU Langone Health, 1 Park Avenue, New York, 10016.
Would the sign be replacing this?
Yes. So, yes, we're replacing the existing sign that was located at the main entrance of the building.
And the existing one is 8 feet by 17 and a half inches.
17 inches, right.
Planning, any comments? All right, anybody, any questions from the board?
No questions.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Yeah, I'll take the motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Application number 542-24, Aldo and Cassandra Jimenez. Permission to leave detached garage 10.1 by 20.3, having rear yard of 3.6 feet instead of required 4 feet, and second front yard of 4.9 feet instead of required 20 feet. To establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602. Residence B District, southwest corner of Michigan Street and North Cedar Avenue, Ronkonkoma.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Aldo Jimenez, owner of 498 Michigan Street, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779, and mainly just seeking the permit or permission to have a legal accessory apartment in my home.
Any questions from the board on this? Planning, any comments? Is there anyone else that'd like to be heard in this application? Yeah, I'll take the motion, please.
Make a motion that we approve the application and with regard to the accessory apartment for a period of 3 years.
Second, all in favor? Application's granted.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Application number 543-24, Patrick and Christina Cattell. Permission to install in-ground pool, leaving rear yard of 10 feet instead of required 18 feet, and to leave 6-foot fence on front property line, not having required setback of 10 feet. Residence AA District, northeast corner of Bay Grove Court and Middle Road, Bayport.
Good evening, everyone. It's Patrick Cattell. I'm the homeowner at 5 Bay Grove Court, Bayport, New York, 11705. Just here today to represent myself in the home and the plans that we submitted to place the in-ground pool.
Planning, do you have any comments on this?
Right, this is a rear yard.
Well, it's a corner lot.
With Keith, we do have an amendment of 14 and then 35 off of middle.
There's a motion.
18.
14 instead of the 10, yeah. And then 35 instead of the 40. Off the middle.
35 is not an issue. Don't need a-
It's not an issue, okay. All right, so 14 is good?
I don't think so. 27 for A, 35 for double A.
Yep. Take a motion, please, to amend it, Paul.
Make a motion.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Both been granted.
Thank
The application.
Okay.
Any other
Not
questions
yet.
on this? No? Is anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, then I'll take a motion, please.
I make a motion that we grant the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted now.
Thank you, have a good night.
Application number 544-24, Angel Pacheco, permission to leave cellar entrance having rear yard of 6.8 feet and egress window having rear yard of 8.9 feet instead of required 25 feet each, and to leave shed 7.1 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet. Residence B District, southwest corner of Manatuck Boulevard and Aztec Drive, Bay Shore.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Angel Aponte, A-P-O-N-T-E. I reside at 1330 Washington Avenue, Bay Shore, New York, 11706, as the agent for the owner to my left.
Thank you, Ain. Thank you for saying hello to me. I know that's what you meant.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angel Pacheco. I'm the owner for 1358 Manatee Boulevard in Bayshore, New York.
So we're here for these three items that are existing. If I quickly go over it, the cellar entrance, 88 square feet, having 6.8 from the rear property line instead of 25. Egress window well, having 67 square feet, having 8.9 feet instead of 25. And then we have a 9-foot tall shed, 104 square feet, at 7.1 feet from the front of the house instead of the 20 we'd like to maintain.
Questions from the board? Planning, any comments on this? It is a very shallow area. Typically, risk movements are
There are rooms downstairs in the basement? So when it's enclosed with a door, you have to have a second means out in case of a fire. So if that wasn't there, then you couldn't have those rooms. New York State Code. It would probably fall apart if you try to move it.
I don't know, which one is the shed? Is it the flat roof or the gable?
I'm sorry, let me see the picture you're,
Looking through the pictures that you submitted,
yeah,
Which, the top or the bottom? Which is?
the bottom.
what is the top picture?
Again, I'm sorry.
Do we have any 7 instead of 20? never granted any. So, the area.
The survey only has the one shed.
Yeah,
what's
the
the-
second shed with the, by the way, oh, that's the side of it.
That's the side of the shed, and maybe that's what
I see.
You have to move the shed back.
it would fall apart, so I guess.
Not a problem. We're not moving it. I mean, that's not, I get your point, but that's not a reason for getting around zoning.
Okay. I ask.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
It might not fall apart.
It might not.
Len, do you have any precedent on this, the depth of the shed? or- Your question's answered about the window and the satisfaction? Sure. Yeah? Yes.
Second source of ingress and egress.
All right.
Okay, yes, I'll make a motion that we amend the call to read the shed 15 feet behind dwelling.
Second on that? All in favor of the? Aye. All right, now we'll take a motion in the, is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application? Sorry. Motion on the application.
Motion for the,
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Case is granted as amended.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 545-24, Carmine Cicerano and Emily Beans Cicerano. Permission to install in-ground pool leaving side and rear yards of 12 feet instead of required 18 feet each. Residence AA District, south side of Woodbury Road, 420.79 feet east of Breton Road, Hauppauge.
Hi, I'm Emily Cicerano. This is my husband, CJ Cicerano, and we live at 122 Woodbury Road, and we would like an in-ground pool.
Okay? The location can be moved, correct?
So our yard is, I mean, technically yes, but it would go right in the middle of our yard, and it would eat up most of our yard, and it would prevent us from eventually adding on to the house, and it would basically force us into moving in a few years.
But you have 41 feet.
Yes, but we'd like to eventually extend the house, and
41 feet.
we'd like to extend it about like 18 feet back, so having the pool.
They'll be back.
Unfortunately, we have to deal with here and now. In other words, somebody says, yes, we plan on having.
Please, plan.
This is a split zone property, so as you can see in there, the zoning line goes right through them there. They're sized for residence A because of the way that the code works, because they have a double A line through them. Double A standard, the lot's not sized for that. They're the only property in this entire area. So it's the opinion of planning that it'd be more reasonable.
Do you remember that when somebody within 500 foot said granted this on September 10th?
Good job, Mr. Town Attorney.
Town attorney, Mr. DiMaggio,
You gotta wake them up.
you write that into
Well,
the.
even still, we're still looking at 12 and 12, right?
It'd be 12 instead of 14.
But, correct, but still 12 on both sides. I don't think we give variance for both sides, right?
Yeah.
So what if we did it 14 and
Yeah,
14?
we give one.
14 and 14? That works. That's perfect.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application? Okay, I'll take a motion to amend the call and then to,
Make a motion to amend the call to read as 14 feet instead of the required 18.
On both sides?
Both sides.
Second.
all in favor? All right, call's been changed. I'll take a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Case is granted 14.
Thank you.
634. Application number 546-24, Town of Islip Community Development Agency. Permission to erect one-story dwelling on lot having width of 50 feet instead of required 75 feet, lot area of 7,250 square feet instead of required 7,500 square feet, Side yards of 12.3 feet instead of required 14 feet each. Portico leaving side yard of 9.8 feet and total side yards of 22.1 feet instead of required 28 feet. Residence B District, south side of East Halley Lane, 482.77 feet west of Hawthorne Avenue, Central Islip.
Good evening, Ray Snyder, representing Fusion Architecture, 1 Fairchild Court, Suite 130, Plainview, New York, 11803, here representing the Islip Community Development Agency. We're respectfully requesting a variance, or variances, to erect a new one-story single-family residence on what is currently a vacant lot located at 67 Haley Lane.
Could you tell me what we have based this on?
There are some previous lots that we have done this similar structure based. No, I don't believe it was within that distance, but it was part of the Islip CDA we have done in the B residence district. I don't believe we are anywhere within 500 of any of our previous projects.
Can you tell us what the nature and character of the neighborhood? Are there a whole bunch of
Yes, there are multiple 50-foot wide lots. This is not an unusual situation. As represented by the requirements from the zoning, we don't believe any of our requests are major.
Andy, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, there was a house here 3 or 4 years ago that was previously on property, and you may be able to see on the map, it's very much, this lot size is very much, it's, I think, more than 2 dozen exact sizes. Certainly nature.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
Yeah.
Favor? Aye. Great.
Thank you.
Application number 547-24, Craig Abruzzo. Permission to erect 2-story dwelling and decking resulting in floor area ratio of 42.68% instead of permitted 30%, and to erect decking leaving side yard of 12.3 feet instead of required 15 feet. Residence BAA District, west side of West Lighthouse Walk, 120 feet south of Cedar Court, Kismet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. J.R. DeCiccio with the law firm of Greenberg Chorig.
How do you pronounce your last name?
DeCiccio with a D-I capital C-I-O, C-C-I-O. DeCiccio, yes. With the law firm of Greenberg Chorig, 900 Stewart Avenue, Garden City, New York. I'm here tonight on behalf of the property owner, Craig Abruzzo. Mr. Abruzzo recently purchased this vacant lot on West Lighthouse Walk, although he has been a homeowner in Kismet for a little over 25 years now. The lot, as I said, is vacant, and it's adjacent to the Fire Island National Seashore property to the west. And if my counting is correct, it's the 4th lot in from the ocean on the west side. Mr. Abruzzo is proposing to construct a new dwelling, resulting in an FAR of 42.68% instead of the permitted 30%. A side yard variance for the rear deck is also required, as it maintains a side yard of 12.2 feet on the north side. Other than these two relatively insubstantial variances, the proposed home otherwise complies with the zoning code. Both variances fit squarely within the nature and character of the neighborhood. In terms of FAR, this board has very recently granted 2 variances, allowing for FARs of 42.1%. The first was directly across the street at 25 West Lighthouse, and the second was on East Lighthouse. I believe it was 18 East Lighthouse. Both of those homes are within the 500-foot radius that this board typically looks to. Importantly, in the decision for the property on East Lighthouse, the board recognized that this board has granted much more significant relaxation for floor area ratios to other homes within a 500-foot radius. It goes on to list FARs of 45.66%, 45.5%, 47.2%, 48%, 50%, and 56.5%. Given the previous approvals of this board, an FAR of 42.68% is clearly within the nature and character of the neighborhood. Likewise, there is precedent for the requested side yard variance. The most notable, again, is directly across the street, where this board in July approved a side yard variance of 6.1 feet instead of the required 15 feet. In our case, we are proposing a side yard of more than double what was approved directly across the street. So the board's prior precedent demonstrates that the relief sought by this application is consistent with, and for the most part, less substantial than previous approvals of this board for properties within the immediate vicinity. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we would request that the board grant the application as submitted.
Done some zoning work.
I tried to, yes. I've watched a lot of your hearings on YouTube. It's one of my,
Riveting stuff.
very riveting. It's one of my favorite things to do on a Tuesday night.
Sure it helps with the insomnia.
It does. Okay.
Anything from planning?
Yeah, I was wondering, cited estimates in the high 40s. Do you have
Sure. I got 680-14. That was for 45.66%. 615-11. That was for 45.5%. 60709 was 42.5%. 302-14, that was for 48%. 249-19 was for 40%. 593-10 was for 50%. And 098-18 was for 56.5%.
those were all in his?
Yes.
Were they all within 500 feet of the property?
Those were within 500 feet. Those were the decisions cited in the East Lighthouse decision. So it's possible that some of them are outside of the 500 foot.
And what was the FAR given in the East Lighthouse decision?
42.1%.
Which is the last three grants. One as recently as I believe this month.
Cecile, could you bring it at 42.1 so consistent? Like we have that number in our brain, unless you feel that.
Well,
He's quibbling.
no, I think my client's agreeable to the 42.1%.
Yeah, we did 3 in a row. You were watching YouTube videos.
I did watch them, yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
It's a couple 4 times.
Anyone else from the board want to be heard on this? Okay. Satisfied?
I am satisfied.
Okay. How about from the audience? Would anyone like to be heard on this application? Okay, that being said, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the application at 42.1.
All in favor?
Thank you.
I'd like to commend you. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Good job. Yeah, you got a future in this business.
Application number 548-24, Erica and Paul Trop. Permission to erect second-story deck resulting in floor area ratio of 35.38% instead of permitted 30%. Residence BAA District, southeast corner of Gale Avenue and Neptune Walk, Seaview.
Good evening. Glenn Graham with Graham Associates, 256 Orinoco Drive, Bright Waters, New York, representing the owners. They're looking to just extend an existing balcony over a recently built screen porch. The porch or the balcony would be in a conforming location, and we're seeking an FAR variance of 35.38. The board is aware that in Seaview, we've routinely gotten grants of 40%. Consistently, I've appeared in front of the board many times and received 40%. So the 35 is with the nature and character of the neighborhood.
Any questions at this time?
No questions.
Planning, any comments? Anybody else like to be heard in this application? Take the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Application is granted.
Thank you.
Application number 549-24, David Levy, permission to relocate and elevate existing two-story dwelling with decking on lot having width of 50 feet instead of required 60 feet, leaving side yard of 4.7 feet instead of required 10 feet, and to expand roof deck 4 by 20.6, leaving side yard of 10.8 feet instead of required 15 feet, all having total side yards of 15 feet instead of required 25 feet. Residence BAA District, west side of Sexton Walk, 88.82 feet north of Fire Island Lighthouse baseline, through lot to Compass Walk, Robbins Rest.
Good evening. Glenn Graham with Graham Associates, Bright Waters, New York, representing the owners. This application involves lifting a home built in 1935. It's an existing non-conforming home. We are seeking to lift it to meet FEMA standards. However, in doing the lift, we'd like to improve the setbacks of the home, make it more conforming by centering the house on the lot and moving it further from the street. So therefore, we'd be asking for less relaxations than we are tonight. Part of the application involves a screen porch, which I've submitted pictures for you. That would put the porch at 4.7 feet, and it's only a small portion of the side of the home. The second relief sought is also for a small portion of a balcony, which we're going to use to create some covered shaded space. So the relief sought tonight would be less of detrimental to the neighborhood if we were just to lift the house in place. That's the neighbor across the street that had some precedent on it.
Any comments?
I would agree with most folks said there. It is more conforming for the most part than what is currently existing. The house itself maintains on the side, and that's the screen porch that is approaching. In my mind, a less intensive.
I know it's screen door.
We do not. We're concerned about that setting a precedent.
My only concern is, are we going to have to allow everybody?
Robbins Rest.
It is, the house currently maintains 6.7 side. So, to my mind, this is.
My concern is, how do we not set
Yeah, Mr. Wexler, I agree with you on that. However, this house, and I'll submit, I'd like you to just see the existing survey.
Notice it's very close to the south side. So, what application what is this?
Yeah, the screened-in porch exists.
They're relocating the house, so it's getting closer
understand the issues with this. Concerned about setting a precedent. that we have to start from.
I think the precedent is that it's been there since 1935, and we're trying to actually make the house more conforming.
I know you're doing a great job and everything except for that, but we have to live. The board will have to live with that. And that's my concern. Again, I understand you're improving a lot of other things. Good. But you can't pretend that we didn't grant it.
Would be specific revenue restricted porch, but.
And then we have to grant other screening porches. I don't know at this juncture if that's where we want to go.
I would
4.7 feet.
The alternative I have is to lift the house in place, but I think that would be more detrimental to the whole block.
I agree, but you understand my point. We're stuck with 4.7.
Well, if it would make you happier, how about, we're moving the house. So if you'd like it to go to 6.7, I could do that.
I think that's moving the right direction.
6.7. To be clear, though, it would go then into the inside yards. It's already at 10 point. So in order to make it, you'd have to move the entire house. My mind. Because that's the actual house index itself. In terms of impact, in terms of setting precedent, I guess 6.7.
I just know we're going to come up with it. And we know there are small lots over to the beach, and probably you wouldn't put it done.
Well, I promise not to use it as a precedent.
It's a done will let you, so I know.
True precedent.
And then you'll use that one as your. Yeah, exactly. Is it a huge event for them to relocate it or build it?
Well, taking down a porch is much harder than just lifting and moving the whole house over. What we were, I think you understand, we're just trying to square off this house to the property and really center it.
What do you say, Mr. McKay? You're the vice chair, and you're invested with this knowledge.
I said, Fire Island is really your specialty. I took front, rear yard landscape, you know, that's my thing. I don't see a problem if it's just going up. Sorry. I don't see as large a problem as you, if it's just going up. Rather than going into the other side yard, which is a concern.
I get that, I just don't know how we delineate it.
Right, and you don't want more at Robin's Rest, I understand that. So is there a way to delineate it to make it unique? That's really what the question is.
Why don't we just make it, take your advice and make it a 6.7? As long as it's not creating. But would you rather have the second variance, which is not as substantial as 4.7?
Yeah, what I think you're creating there is the whole south side of the house now, instead of 10, would be at roughly 8, the entire house, versus just a portion of the porch.
Why don't you make it 5? The other side would be 10.
That's, we can lift it and move it anywhere you want. We just don't want to take down a portion of the house.
Just to be clear, Glenn, this screened porch is on the CO, right?
Yes, it is. The house was built in 1935, it's CO'd, and it's been in front of the board twice.
No, he just wants to lift it.
It's also appeared in zoning. I did this case in I forget that. There was one in 88 and 2008.
Ignore everything I said, because when Mary said.
I have.
Yes, 2 magic letters. Yeah, I didn't know, I just couldn't read it.
I thought you were here in 35.
He's getting old, he doesn't hear as well.
I started myself in 1950. So.
Here's the 2008
All right, as long as it's
application.
on the CO, I don't have a problem. Now it makes sense.
It was referred to as a roofed-over deck when you came to us in '08. It's just got the
Okay.
same.
All right. I withdraw my concern.
You withdraw the whole last 10 minutes.
So the,
Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
Before you vote, we're keeping this as presented?
That's correct.
Please.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
May-
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make the motion to grant the application.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and I still will not use it as precedent.
As long
Have a
as
good
it's
night.
CO'd, you can use it.
Right. He took 10 minutes of your life.
But we learned something.
We learned something.
Application number 550-24, USC Realty Corp. Permission to erect two-story dwelling, leaving floor area ratio of 32% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, west side of Girard Avenue, 175.14 feet south of Mackenzie Court, Bay Shore.
Good evening, all. I'm Michael Dunn, the architect at 256 Orinoco Drive. Okay, thank you. The address is 256 Orinoco Drive, Brightwaters, New York, 11718.
You want 4.7?
Yes, please. So the plan is to build a new house on this lot on Girard. We did come up with a plan that everybody likes. It came out to 32%. A little birdie told me to keep it down at 30%, so I would be okay with the board to modify the call to 30% instead of 32.
Make a motion.
After all these years, I refuse to believe that.
No, I was trying. I was hoping there was some precedence in the area, but there was not.
Oh, so you planned it first and looked for the precedent.
Yes.
Any comments? No comments. Or it's not a. Anyone else that'd like to be heard in this application, please come up.
Good evening. Christine Vecchione. I reside at 5 Girard Avenue, Bay Shore, New York, 11706.
Without having a map in front of me, identify roughly where you are in relation to the property.
I am across the street heading east. The property located at Girard Avenue was purchased February 28, 2024 by USC Realty Corp. For $200,000 for the sole purpose of building a home to be sold strictly for financial gain. In 2013, the company purchased a property located at 6 Bay Bright, just up the block. So the purchaser is familiar with zoning codes and regulations. We are not. So I have done some research. I'd like to present to you why I'm objecting to this property. The purchaser has created a self-imposed hardship and voluntarily chose not to respect zoning ordinances by purchasing the property, knowing a variance would be required to build a home occupying 32%. Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, taking steno. I apologize. Instead of the 25% allowed by the zoning code 68-415. My first argument. Variances are typically granted when there is a pressing need for development. The purpose of a code variance is to provide relief in extraordinary circumstances. Granting a variance to build an oversized home as an investment property in no way presents an extraordinary circumstance and would prove disrespectful to town ordinances specifically created by officials to protect the interests of citizens who elected them. Secondly, setting a negative precedent for the town and community. Floor area ratio relaxations not only disrespects ordinances, but sets a dangerous precedent for future builders to undermine zoning laws specifically established to protect the community. Allowing a larger footprint greater than what is permitted encourages future developers to seek similar variances, leading to overdevelopment in environmentally sensitive areas. It does not protect the welfare of the community, ensuring future development is in line with existing zoning regulations and maintaining the character of neighborhoods. Number 3, historical and impact of neighborhood character. For nearly 50 years, the previous owner of the property for which the variance is now being sought, along with the home adjoining at 8 Girard, was historically used as a backyard. There's evidence that proves this. There's a lack of fence designating 2 separate lots, landscaping, utilization of the lot, and a pool that used to exist. Further proof of the lot's unified use can be seen in the property's sales listing, which referred only to 8 Girard Avenue, including the combined dimensions of both parcels, and emphasized the selling point of a separate parcel as additional privacy for the adjoining home. As well as other potential buyers, the lot functioned as a single unit, not for separate development. Neighbors only learned that the property was sold as 2 different lots when they were notified about the variance a week ago. I performed a deed search to verify the public information provided by the real estate agent was correct. The misrepresentation by the seller and the real estate further supports the argument that the land was intended and marketed as a single property, with no exception for a separate development, leading to the justified concerns and objections from the surrounding community. Additionally, the property is located on a narrow one-way street, which exacerbates concerns about construction, prolonged construction, access to neighborhood homes, poses a safety risk. The narrow nature of the street does not accommodate construction vehicles and associated disruptions, further underscoring the unsuitability for the lot for development. When the real estate advertised the property, there was never an option to buy the lot separately, and I have included that in this packet I could give to everyone. It was advertised as one unit. Neighbors would have purchased the lot separately for $200,000. No one had an opportunity to do so. That is a separate issue. You may. Yes. The properties have always been one unit. The lot was bought from the original owner in 1978, and for the last 46 years has been used as a backyard. The original owner is deceased, and her family sold the home. I have the real estate listing. We all inquired. The properties are deeded separately, but the historic use was a backyard.
But they were in common ownership.
Correct.
So are you familiar with the concept of merger?
No.
In zoning law and real estate law, when you have 2 properties, especially substandard lots, next to each other, titled the same for zoning purposes, it creates problems when you try to split them up and sell them at an illegal subdivision.
Okay, when was this property subdivided?
Wasn't subdivided, but what I'm saying is,
Okay.
the two substandard lots adjacent to each other,
Mhm.
titled the same way, they are one lot for zoning purposes.
Okay.
You raise an issue that we have to find out from Mr. Dunn.
I have a little bit. I have a little more for you, if I may finish. I can give you this presentation, and I have some documentation showing the original sale.
I apologize, I thought it was substandard. Oh, it's not a substandard lot? Okay.
Okay. For everyone, if they like them. No, yes, each board member could have one, correct.
Second lot, is it in the same names?
I am so confused. I have the wrong glasses on.
Do all of this research on your own?
With my husband, yes.
Are either of you lawyers or?
No, he's a CP, I am a teacher.
What is he?
No, middle school. 10 years. This particular property, as it's located directly across the street. Yes?
You mentioned it, we won't belabor the point, but the code says 25% FAR. We routinely grant 30, always. So that really is not an issue. But you know, that would not be a prohibition. But the potential merger raises some issues.
Please continue.
I have also foiled information from the DEC, a determination of property adjacent to a wetland. I have not gotten that FOIL because we only received this notice a week ago. The representative on the phone informed me that there was a delineation study. However, he and a colleague disagreed. The delineation was performed in February, which is an extremely dry time. If that delineation was performed in May or June, at the height of growth, I think they would have a different result. We have a very high water table. Anytime it rains, we are overwhelmed with rainwater, as all my neighbors can contest to. I'm not sure how covering more of the property is going to be able to mitigate the rainwater that we already have an issue with. I would hope that the zoning board doesn't approve variances for the sole purpose of financial gain at the expense of other people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, people sell property for financial gain.
The guarantee when you sell your property, you would like to make a gain. I don't think you're going to sell it for the same price as it was.
Correct.
Capitalism is okay.
I understand that completely, but to ask for a larger lot, an overbuild is for financial gain solely, not for the betterment of the neighborhood.
What he's explained to you is they're not asking for more than anybody else has asked for. That's
Well,
the issue.
I was unaware that 30% was the typical percentage. Granted, when I read the code, it says 25%.
I'm just wondering if you're aware, the property you live on, 50% variance.
Correct, I did not live there at the time.
What you're enjoying the benefit of that 50% variance. Granted, that property was what you bought.
Sure, and I wouldn't have that information. However,
More egregious what goes on in the neighborhood than what he's at.
that is an opinion. That is an opinion. In my opinion, that this lot has been historically, that's acceptable, I understand.
On that property, you were enjoying a 50% variance. Side yard 5 feet, 10 feet on your house.
I did not apply for that variance, and it was,
I'm saying you're enjoying the benefit of a 50% variance on your property.
that, in my opinion,
On a base one, basically, you bring up all this research, which is well done, but you have to understand the purposes of variances.
I do, and in my opinion, the property that we're discussing is this one, not my property, and the relevance of the variances granted on my property in 2003 is not relevant to wanting an overbuild on this lot.
It is relevant to the extent, as Mr. Sullivan is that we look at the surrounding property. And if the surrounding property right across the street has a 50% variance, we don't look at these silent. We don't look at them in a vacuum. We have to take in everything. That is a factor that we have to look at. You can't pretend that.
And the environmental concerns,
That goes into the overall picture. There's a lot of issues. Some, as I said, that you may have some issues we need to work out. Others are really not. The fact that your property, right across the street, got a 50% variance, that goes into big pie that we have to study.
and I would have to look at all the surrounding properties to look at what variances were granted and for the purpose of the variance. There could have been an extenuating circumstance on my property in 2003.
Absolutely, Rob.
What was that? the woman that lived in the home prior to me was, by the previous owners, she was handicapped. They may have extended the home for her. That's an extenuating circumstance. This is an overbuild on a small lot. And it's unfortunate that the variance seems like it will be granted regardless of how many of us love our neighborhood. I'm not the only one here that is against this overbuild. I have several other neighbors that are in support. And it's unfortunate that this is why individuals shy away from coming to meetings like this, because we feel powerless to change things. Because I've already been told the house is going to be built.
You gotta let people finish. Otherwise, you will not be empowered because you won't have a record. You have the entire board, staff, attorneys, stenograpers, planning, listening to you, dissecting you. Why would you say that you feel that it's not worth it to come to whoever undivided attention?
Because your undivided attention is not changing, that a historical use property is going to have an overbuild on it that doesn't match the character of the neighborhood, that is going to increase flooding, that is going to cause disruption for over a year. And I'm not against capitalism or personal gain, but it comes at the expense of our neighborhood that we feel strongly about. And if we didn't feel so strongly about our neighborhood, we all wouldn't be here objecting this variance.
Where is the proof it's going to increase flooding? What proof is that?
I'm sorry, who asked me a question?
I asked you a question. I'm the vice chairman.
Hi, thank you. Every square foot of land absorbs a certain amount of
And that's true of every
rainwater.
lot.
Correct, but now you cover that lot with a home, you're now taking away a natural drainage system.
I understand
So
that.
how
That
is the
goes to
home going to
every lot in
mitigate the
town.
extra water? I would love for anyone to come to Girard Avenue after a few days of rain. We are pumping thousands of gallons of water out of our basements. So now, correct. But if you take land away, do you not now put that water to a neighbor's house? How is the home that's going to be built going to mitigate that water that's already a problem for us?
That's the engineering department. If they say it's okay, then it's okay, then it works. There are methods that can be used to resolve that issue. And if the engineering department, everything that gets built goes through the engineering department. If they approve it, then drainage is fine. That's standard. I mean, everything you build has an impact.
Correct.
It's a matter of weighing that impact against the benefit.
Correct, and
In
the,
this case, a 30% FAR in this area is not egregious. It is not over the top. It is standard. It is readily given. In fact, we cut them down.
It's
from
something
32%
that,
to 30%.
it's something the court would enforce.
If we said no to them,
A judge in a minute would overturn it.
it's unfortunate, and then we'll seek legal counsel as well to make sure that things are happening accordingly. There are other neighbors here. I'm not sure if they'd like to add. And thank you for your time.
For your presentation. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this afternoon?
Evening, Chris. Adam Quinn, 3 Girard Avenue, Bayshore, New York, 11706. Adam Quinn. Everything my neighbor Christine told is, fact, okay? The questions I come to the board with right now is we do have our laws that state that there needs to be the 25%, correct? What I'm hearing is that we are just constantly approving 30% and we're cutting it down from 35, 32, we're going down to 30, and then we're going up to 50. And what I'm looking for in my town is consistency. The other point I want to try and make is about the flooding, okay? That road currently in front of 7 Girard Avenue, which is 2 houses south of me, has a wastewater, right, rainwater runoff. Never operates because it's constantly full. So now there's going to be an oversized house on the smaller lot with your approved variance that is now going to be pumping water into that same wastewater pipe that's overflowed to capacity to begin with. So what I'm hearing is that it's an engineering problem. So the engineering problem, right, they have their numbers and it's going to be based off the 25% code that we currently have. But now variance says it's going to be 30%. Okay, so bigger house, bigger wastewater problem. So I'm answering that question right. Rainwater, runoff. Okay? Runoff. calling it runoff, yes.
Wastewater is typically referring to.
Groundwater, yeah. So with the runoff that's coming from this proposed property, we're now increasing the runoff in that area, which we already have a problem with flooding. My neighbor Christine has a pump that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That might be due to this house that was built before she moved in with this 50% variance, whatever we want to call it. Every single neighbor that you see on this map right here is present. And we have concerns. And what I'm hearing is that the concerns aren't really important, whether we're texting or we're writing down notes or whatever it may be. We are bringing concerns, and we just hope that it's being heard. That's all I have to say. Okay. No, I understand that. Listening is different than undivided attention. Looking at me when I'm speaking is one thing, texting while someone else is talking is a different thing. Fair enough. Okay. I don't need to hear excuse on anything. I'm making a statement, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rosemary Spina, 7 Gerard. I'm speaking only because he mentioned my property, which is constantly flooded, constantly. I have water in my basement, constantly. So I'm just here to ratify everything that was just said. It's not a minuscule problem, it's a big problem there. And I don't know anything, scientific or engineering related about building a huge property, house on a property, how that's going to affect me, but I know it will. It already has. So just for my 2 cents, it's not an exaggeration. I've been there since 1999, and I've had as much as 4.5 feet of water in my basement. So it is a problem, just so you know.
Anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Yeah,
Just a few clarifications for the board. It is single and separate lot with a separate deed. They call it an undersized lot. It's not an undersized lot. It's very similar to a lot of same size lots in the area. No, there's no merger issue.
Did they own them in the same name?
I saw it was 2 separate names.
Okay.
But the deeds are in here. One from Harold Paxton Shore and Eldor Paxton. And the other one is from USA. Yeah,
But just a few more points, and to appease the neighbors the best I can. It is an environmental sensitive area. We will get a DEC permit. They will maximize the lot coverage at 20%. So we will comply to that. Like you guys said, the engineering will review it. We will take care of all the drainage and the rain. There will not be runoff. That will all comply best we can and get all the approvals with the town and the DEC and the health department. So this is just step 1.
It's automatically subject to DEC.
Yeah, DPW and health department approvals as well.
Why did you mention DEC?
There is wetlands.
I've done some work in that area, and we are ready to go to the DEC if needed. Yes. Yes, it could be a letter of non-jurisdiction or an approval. No, it's too wet of an area for a basement.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment?
Aye. Thank you.
Application number 551-24, Chelsea Coyle, permission to erect 1-story and 2nd-story additions, leaving side yard of 8.5 feet instead of required 14 feet, total side yards of 23.7 feet instead of required 28 feet, and floor area ratio of 47.1% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, north side of Elliott Place, 245.7 feet east of Grant Avenue, Islip.
Good evening, Michael Dunn, architect, again at 256 Orinoco Drive, Brightwaters, New York, 11718. Name and address.
Patrick Brady, 21 Elliott Place, Islip.
Chelsea Coyle Brady, 21 Elliott Place, Islip.
So the plan for this project was to construct a two-story addition to the rear of the house. When we got into the project, we saw how big the detached garage/barn is. So we're proposing a two-story addition, but we are dealing with an existing FAR that is super high at 38% FAR. So where the house is small, the garage is 2 stories, and it's greater than 500 square feet, so it has to be included in the FAR. So I was hoping, in my mind, the board would consider not including the 20% of the garage, and we would be asking for 27%. But in speaking with planning, that goes against any of the zoning, why the code was written. So then we speak to the owners, and we were bouncing around an idea of reducing the barn from 2 stories to 1 story and taking that second story FAR, which say it's 600 square feet, and adding that to the back of the house. So if the existing is 38%, we're maintaining 38% for the house, minus the second story of this garage/barn.
So the garage is 1447 for the two?
Yes, yes. And my clients would be willing to reduce that to 1 story. We can maintain the accessory height of 14 feet and use that square footage towards the house and not have an increase in FAR.
Well, let me go to my source. Planning, what's your comment?
To start with, I'm not sure it's proposed clear, but effectively saying they have an existing FAR 38%. More of half of that is part of the house itself. It was, I believe, 1.5. So the issue that they're having is, as you're saying, the house as proposed would be about 27% FAR. It's not really the house itself that's the problem. It is the garage is not before us, but it is the thing causing the issue. They had a garage on the 500 square feet, 27% FAR. So
The proposal is,
the proposal as of right now, including the garage as existing, is 47%.
okay, we know that's not happening.
It's not gonna happen.
Thanks, Bill.
Their existing
I'm trying to be
FAR
a
is
realist.
38%. I believe that predated FAR in the code.
Existing is 38.
20% of which is the garage. So what he was bringing up as a potential, again, probably not decided tonight, would be to remove
Well,
the
it
second
can't, it
story
changes.
garage, which second stories are not allowed by the code, current code, I should say. But anyway, reducing the height to be more conforming and getting rid of about 10% of that FAR. So I believe the thing they're trying to go for here is to maintain a similar FAR to what they currently have, around 37%, shifting that from the garage to the house.
Is that accurate?
Yes, well said.
What is the garage used for?
It's storage on the first floor, and the second floor is not really used for anything. It doesn't work. It's
Isn't that, I'm just trying to, isn't that something that the code and the law would kind of instructs us that as these old non-conforming disappear, we bring them into rather than that kind of the direction.
about the main house?
Again, the main house itself wouldn't be the issue. It would be in that sense. If they were to reduce the garage, it would still be counted somewhat if it was removed the second story. It would still contribute to FAR. But they would get down to 14 feet in height and the second story. That's more conformable with our accessory structure based on zoning. I believe the FAR would remain effectively the same as it is now. I guess what you're trying to say is, shouldn't we be trying to reduce the FAR anyway? There is a history with the board of letting people maintain legacy FARs if they're existing prior to establishment of their abilities. You could argue that there's a bit of a difference here because it's not the other, but I would be of the opinion that this is a direction toward more conformity in the way that we do everything. There might be a bit more to it than that. Again, this decision should be made tonight. But it's something that I believe planning is at least interested in considering. See how that goes.
Can I ask a question about the side yard setback? So we were asking for 8.5 instead of 14. We were keeping in line with the house on the right side. Do you have precedence that makes that 8.5 okay?
Yes, yeah, there's all the way down to 6.4, 7, 5.1. I don't believe the 8.5 side yard.
Okay.
For the side porch?
Yeah, you want to put a side?
Leave it as a CF.
Yeah. So if it makes sense, I would ask for an adjournment to represent the case in more detail as a renovation of the barn and relocating that FAR square footage to the house.
And then you're gonna have to address side yard and rear yard on the,
I'm not sure if zoning would want to write that up as permission to reconstruct detached garage, leaving side and rear yard of. Yeah, they might see that as needing those variances reinstated, even though it's coming down in height.
So we would keep the call the same? How would we?
I think we would have to address the garage's setbacks because you're going to reconstruct it.
Okay.
I think. It's really zoning's call.
is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application?
Yeah. Can he say a few words on the case?
I just had prepared something. Just to give you guys some context, and I'm actually learning a lot tonight about precedent and FAR and stuff, so it's been very educational for me. My name is Patrick Brady. I live at 21 Elliott Place, Islip. My wife, Chelsea, was born and raised in Islip. We have critical support in the area, including my wife's parents that live a quarter mile away from us. We have a 20-month-old and are actively trying to expand our family further currently. Our home is unfortunately not big enough to accommodate our growing needs. The current housing market is leaving us with limited options. We are making the fiscally responsible and best decision for our family by requesting this modest extension. In doing so, we would create our forever home and set permanent roots in the community we love and where my wife grew up. We understand the complexities with the 100-year-old barn putting us above the FAR. I understand even more listening to you guys tonight. But I do request that the age of the barn, the property age and historical FAR, and the reality of the extension we're asking for is considered. I do believe any potential routes to FAR compliance, including modifying or taking down the barn, would have a much greater impact on the nature and character of the neighborhood than the extension we're asking for in the extra space. I do also understand after listening tonight, 47% is a big number, so thank you.
Got somebody who didn't like 30%.
All right, so then we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, reserve decision, or?
No,
Adjourn.
it's
No,
adjourned. Yeah, it might have to be.
All in favor?
Aye.
Get an adjournment.
All right, thank you. Do you have a date set yet, or?
Thinking October 8th, does that sound good? But it'd be better if you contact zoning just to see.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's keep October 8th, and I'll be in touch with zoning.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Oh, boy. Application number 552-24, John and Maria Ball, permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Code Section 68-602, having gross floor area of 912 square feet instead of permitted 800 square feet, and to leave driveway and gravel area on-side property line not having a required setback of 4 feet each. Residence A District, east side of Munson Lane, 365.37 feet south of Anson Lane, West Sayville.
Yes, how you doing? I'm John Ball, owner of 55 Munson Lane, looking for accessory apartment permit.
Okay, so we're just looking.
Yes. So I believe the 912 square feet does include the staircase, which has a fireproof door on top of it and a fireproof door at the bottom. So it would be considered common area and is roughly about 50 square feet off the 912. So that would leave the variance application.
It shouldn't read 912.
I believe so. I believe it's the 912 is based off the square footage of the exterior walls, you know, upstairs on the second.
So I think building has explained it to me. Where does the occupant of the apartment enter? At the lower door or at the top?
So we both use the front door to go into the home. There's a fireproof door on the right side, which gives you access to the downstairs. And then at the top of the stairs, there's another fireproof door that gives you access to the accessory apartment. This, if I might add, this is also the home I grew up in. This has always been, the pictures you're looking at has always been the size of the house.
So who's got possession of the staircase?
It's considered a common area is what I'm trying to explain. We both go into the foyer. I mean, we don't per se don't walk up the stairs, but we do use the, you know, 9 square feet at the bottom. This is the home I grew up in. So my great-grandparents lived upstairs. My mother lived upstairs. We moved downstairs. She just retired to Myrtle Beach. It's been sitting empty. We decided to do it legally and you know.
But is the tenant upstairs or downstairs?
Nobody, it's vacant right now.
The proposed tenant.
gonna be
no,
upstairs.
no tenants, but upstairs is the apartment that we're.
Apartment's upstairs.
Yeah,
This is a picture
That's the
of the
apartment.
stairs?
of the staircase going upstairs, yes.
So their door is at the top of the staircase.
Their door's at the top of the staircase.
The argument is that the staircase is not in their possession.
Oh, no, it's not. They would close their door and lock their door, because we have,
This is their front door, so to speak.
yes, in other words, we all have access to the front door. You know, my kids, yeah.
Structure.
It's a passageway to go upstairs.
That's what I'm trying to get.
And if you wanted to, you could leave things on the stairs.
Yeah, I'm assuming the mail will be, this is the first time I'm living with somebody who wouldn't be non-family, so, yeah, I'm assuming if they emptied the mailbox, we would have maybe a mailbox down there inside the house that they would put out
All
mail.
these pictures are of the upstairs apartment.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Lenny, you have any comments? What he's
912 instead of 8?
912 is what they're requesting, but
And
what,
8 is
you think upstairs would be what, without the staircase?
I believe the staircase would be roughly 50 square feet, so 862, I believe.
850 is what we usually,
Yeah, the house has been there for 40 years, exactly the way it is. We haven't done any construction or, the walls have been the same.
Well, that's the thing, it can't be
can you
modified.
make the, is there anyone else that'd like to be heard in this application? Okay. And I guess, well, first, I guess we'll amend the call of the meeting to reflect having a gross floor area of 862 square feet.
With the board noting that in the opinion of the board, the staircase as described is excluded from the area of the proposed apartment.
Yes, that it is, thank you.
I'll take a motion to do that.
Motion to amend.
Second.
All in favor? All right, so it's 862 square feet, and then I will take a motion to accept. Grant. For a period of. All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted as amended.
Thank you.
I missed the second. Chris? 3 years. I missed the second. Okay. It's all right. We'll get it from the microphones. Oh, no, we won't. It's teasing. I missed who the applicant was, and I said, oh, we'll get it from the microphones. Oh, no, we won't. Because they won't put it on the microphones. Application number 553-24, Leidy Paula and Kelvin Paula Morel. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602. To leave one-story addition 6 by 19.5, having side yard of 8.6 feet instead of required 14 feet, total side yards of 22.9 feet instead of required 28 feet. To leave bathroom in accessory structure having gross floor area of 25 square feet instead of permitted 20 square feet, pool deck on side property line not having required setback of 6 feet, patio on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet, wall located in driveway site triangle and on front property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence A District, south side of Pear Street, 200 feet west of Islip Avenue, Brentwood.
Good night, my name is Lady Paula, 64 Pear Street, Brentwood, New York, 11717. I'm looking for the permit for the accessory apartment. I feel the thing is close to the yard, to the deck, the pool deck. I take the fee off. But the concrete, I buy the house 5 years ago. When I buy it's there. I don't know that about the square I need.
Did you say you fixed something, like you removed something?
Yeah, the first one. The deck, the pool deck is supposed to be close to the yard. I take the 6 feet out because this is wood.
Pool deck on side property line not having required setback, that's been removed?
The pool deck, the 6 feet, I remove.
It's not there anymore?
No. But another one is concrete. I don't can take out.
Right, we haven't
That's the
gotten to that
patio.
yet, yeah.
Yeah,
Patio is a slab, concrete slab, right?
close, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty laid out.
Landon, do you have any comments on this?
So, the deck is removed, okay, patio, I don't need that. The bathroom is the accessory structure. You know when that bathroom was put in there?
No. It's supposed to be 25. Did you request 20, but I already make it.
She said you moved in there in summer.
She already made it. She
How
said
long
she
you
did
lived
it.
5 years.
And was the bathroom in there when you?
Yes. But in the accessory apartment, I need a permit.
No, I understand. It's, the reason I'm asking is the code about the bathroom. I don't have anything for that. As far as the wall goes, it's, for the parts of it that are higher than 3 feet, it's a solid wall, so that's construction, although I don't believe the wall is supporting all points.
This is the site triangle you're talking about?
Yeah. So, the wall in question,
Yes.
I don't know if it's 4 feet up to the pillar here, and then the wall down here is actually just 3 feet. There's a fence on top of it. That's not 4 feet to the top of the pillar. How that would be. So, for any part of the wall that's 3 feet or less, obviously it's brought up. For the parts of it that are higher than 4 feet, it's a solid wall. I don't see how you could argue it's not.
So if
I
those
think
two,
so.
those two pillars were reduced from 4 feet down to 3 feet, it wouldn't,
To the best of my knowledge, but I don't know the specifics. I think better to just say that it's not a better part of it.
Nick, Google says that that's a 2012 image. Maybe, might not show the site projection, this, kind of so.
So you see the wall in the 8.6 of the information that I now have about the disaster. Anyone else would like to make a statement on this application? The picture reflects how the walls are currently?
Yeah. I have the same, yeah. Well, close to there, I have something concrete, more, little more.
Rotate.
Yeah, close to there, I have little concrete. Close to the yard. Next time? Yeah. In the back.
Oh.
So the one-story addition is not shown there, right, on the street view from 2012? I don't think so. It's recessed a bit from the front of the house. So the one-story addition was built before you bought the house, or?
I'm sorry?
The addition that the board is questioning, that's 6 feet by 19 feet?
That's a garage.
No, I think it's on, is it on the opposite side of the house?
I'm sorry, you're right. Do you have anything on the?
I think it's on the,
western side of the
it's
house?
further from the driveway. The one-story addition is on the opposite side from the driveway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, too many nice trees. Yeah, could be there.
It's behind the driveway.
Oh, no, I don't think so. So the floor plan says you have a bathroom in there?
Yes.
Already asked if anyone else has any comments, or take a reserved decision? All in favor? Aye. Reserved decision. Reserved decision, ma'am.
You'll have a decision in 60 days.
16 days?
62.
62. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Application number 554-24, Stephen Smith. Permission to leave roof deck above cabana having side yard of 8.3 feet instead of required 18 feet. Residence AA District, west side of West Bayberry Road, 434 feet south of South Ocean Avenue, Islip.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, James Manicone, partner at JM2 Architecture. Offices at 2410 North Ocean Avenue, Suite 300, Farmingville, New York, 11738.
Yeah, you're in the wrong neighborhood, Nick, I think.
He's going. He's going.
It's no fun. John, keep it down.
He's listening though.
Just let him know what not to do.
Roof deck.
Correct. So when we did the renovation, the cabana, which was roughly around 150 square feet, was existing, and we left it. And the cabana had like a peak roof. So when we did the renovation, we had a balcony, which you see, which kind of abutted the cabana, and it didn't look aesthetically pleasing right up against the peak roof. So what we did was we took the peak roof off and continued the balcony over the cabana. So there's actually a glass rail around that balcony off of a bedroom. So the cabana was an accessory structure detached from the house, and then the balcony went across, and now it goes over that cabana.
On the CO, it was not attached to the house. It's now become attached.
Correct. It was a cabana, yeah. The pool is existing, the patio is existing. Everything you see on the back of the house, we did not touch. Okay, the pool is existing. The cabana was also existing, and we just extended the balcony over the cabana. Well, actually, the neighbor, John Houlihan, wrote a letter, which we were hoping to have. He wrote a letter in support of this application, and I can forward that letter to you from him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the way I would rebut that is, given the proximity of one neighbor to the other, he is at least 150 feet away, his backyard. Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. Mm-hmm. I understand. What's that, Steve? Would you? No. He was saying there was an existing balcony there. We just extended it. Mm-hmm.
Was there even a CO for the existing balcony?
I believe there was, yes.
When you extended that close to the property line,
Mm-hmm.
and that code there is 18 feet, and for whatever reason, with an accessory 8.3, we don't get too crazy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But now you change the whole complexity of it. Now you make it an observation.
What if we were to, on that, what if we were to, on that side closest to the neighbor's property, put up,
You can put up 1,000-foot Leland cypress.
no, I'm not going to put up a Leland cypress, but in lieu of a railing, do just a screen wall or something like that, that the neighbor can't see that.
That's impossible for the zoning board.
Mm-hmm.
I understand your point. It's impossible. As I said, you're always very sensitive.
I was wondering actually, how high is
If I had to say, it was probably maybe 9 feet. Because the pool, the cabana was pretty low. So it's really just the roof that we took off, and the balcony just goes over that. So it's not, and there are, you can even see in this image, there are significant trees, green giants around the property. In fact, if you look on both property lines, there are green giants that wrap the entire property. Now, granted, I know what you could say about a species or so on, but my client has planted significant screening around the entire parcel. No, I understand. I understand that. I understand that. But like I said, at the moment, Mr. Houlihan does live in this home, and he did give support, which I have in writing, which I will gladly print and give to the board. No, I know, but certainly I could give that to you tomorrow. The drawings, the site plan says existing cabana on it, 11.8 by 13.6. Yeah.
Anyone else like to be heard in this application?
Of course. Absolutely.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Application number 555-24, Daniel Jones, permission to erect one-story addition, 24 by 58.85 irregular, leaving front yard of 47.5 feet instead of required 50 feet, side yard of 14 feet instead of required 25 feet, total side yards of 33.47 feet instead of required 60 feet, to install 6-foot fence with columns, leaving front yard of 4 feet instead of required 15 feet, and located within driveway site triangle instead of permitted height of 3 feet. Residence AAA District, north side of Kings Highway, 177.36 feet east of Ridgefield Road, Hauppauge.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, Steve Bertolino, 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. Before we begin, I'd like to just hand up a couple of small items. One is a letter of no opposition and actually in support for the, I guess Jay's busy.
From John Houlihan?
No, John Houlihan was out of town at the moment. But off the record, I live nearby there. I think that's a backhanded way to get that approved, but what do I know? Anyway. Mr. Wexler would have my ears. Are you kidding me? So what I just handed now was just a letter from the most affected neighbor and just a little map showing where it is. I also have a survey that's got some hand-drawn marks in red. I know you're not supposed to alter a survey, but we're not using it for surveying purposes. And the architect has just pointed out some highlights I think each board member should be aware of. Wait, Jay, before you go. You've got more. I've also got a zoning map and several copies. The first copy is in color for the record, and additional copies that are in black and white to save the ink on my printer because I didn't have that much. Those are all the same, and these are all the same. And then just 4 photographs of the front of the house to get that out of the way. So I just want to start. This is what I call the meeting. The front yard, since it's the first item on the call of the meeting, is 47.5 compared to the required 50. And I think that's a de minimis ask. The relaxation there is very small. It's about 5%. 2.5 feet over 50 is not much. But most importantly, if you look at the survey with the red hand-drawn items in there, it's important to note that the pavement for this road is actually about 16 feet to the south of the lot line. And the neighbor to the east, if you look to the southeast corner of this parcel, the neighbor to the east, his parcel goes an additional 10 feet to the south, and he has a 6-foot stockade fence along that line. And I'd like to keep that in the back of your minds because that's important for a lot of the things we're presenting here tonight. So the first one with the 2.5-foot request on the garage, I think it's important to note that we do have an additional 16 feet to the pavement, and you do have the neighbor's lot, which extends further to the south by 10 feet. So even if there was a widening of the road, which is not likely on this particular road, I doubt very much that the town would take the neighbor's property by eminent domain and come any closer than that 10-foot mark. So in essence, we're asking for a 2.5-foot setback from the front lot line, but we're always going to be at least 8 feet ahead of that, you know, because if there was some kind of expansion of the road, which I doubt. So on that note, Kings Highway is a dead end that cuts through the industrial park in Hauppauge. There is a residential area to the north of that. If you're going over to the old court building and the DMV state building all down there, a lot of people will know Kings Highway further to the east. But as you run to the west, this is that residential community. And the zoning map I handed out, I don't know who's got the color photo, Mr. Chairman does, but the strange thing about this parcel, it is the only residential parcel that's AAA zoned. From what I understand, the architect Thomas Bloor, in communicating with the people from the town, I believe it was the planning department, this lot was initially showing up on the screen as an industrial lot. Mr. Bloor was informed that that was a mistake and that a correction would be made. The correction was made, making the parcel a residential zone as opposed to commercial. But if you look, that lot is no bigger than any other lot around it, yet that lot somehow got the misfortune of being labeled a AAA as opposed to a AA. And the reason that's important is that if this were, like the rest of the parcels within this residential area, a AA lot, our setbacks would be much different. So if you look at what we're asking for, the house itself currently sits on both sides of the lot at about 19 feet and change on the east and west sides, which is more indicative of an 18-foot setback that you would find in a AA zone, not in a 30-foot setback that you would find in AAA. So I think when the correction was made in mapping this on the zone, it should have went one zone down. Now, my suspicion, and it's just a suspicion, is that when you went from Industrial 1, they said, you know what, let's go down or up a class, but we'll keep it the largest restrictive class, which is AAA, when they should have looked at the surrounding area and said, every other parcel in the neighborhood is AA. All those lots are the same size or, in fact, bigger than our subject parcel. Sure, just one.
So let's assume we adopted your argument, makes sense, and treated this as AA, as it looks like it is an anomaly. If it was AA, how would you, what type of variance would you?
And Mr. Wexler, that's an excellent question. I'm glad you led off with that one. So this morning.
You have a friend.
We would have an 18-foot setback requirement, which now you think about the house being at 19, and our relaxation request would go from a 25-foot side yard relaxation to 14. We would be going from 18 to 14. So instead of an 11-foot relaxation somewhere in the area of about 40%, we're now going down to about 25% relaxation from 18 to 14. And it's something that this board would routinely grant in just about any other application. And that holds true on the side yard. It holds true on the front yard. I don't have any precedent that I could find. I don't know if planning had anything that came up.
So the major subdivision that is to the north and.
To the
The north
northeast.
and east of this property, White Spruce Lane, is 278 cluster, double A. So
It
I'm
would-
just about certain that the typical lot layout in that major subdivision would show side yards of 14 feet.
Because when it's a cluster, as Ms. Pissarro pointed out, usually you go down a zone when you're granting the relaxations. So even though we don't have precedent for any zoning requests, again, when you're talking about keeping in the nature and character of the area and the community in which the parcel sits, I've pointed out that this definitely is in the nature and character of everything else around it. And as Mr. Wexler so finally carried the point, the zoning, I believe, I want an approval.
Oh, my.
Well, wait, so the 6-foot fence goes to what I told you to keep in the back of your mind, which was when you think about the front yard setback here. The front yard setback of 4 feet is going off the lot line. But once again, look at that southeast corner. The neighbor has a 6-foot stockade fence, but more importantly, his parcel goes an additional 10 feet, I'm going to say forward, but technically it's 10 feet south. So even our fence from that point is 14 feet from the line that the neighbor's fence is at. So the last part about the fence that I would say is I know this board is against having 6-foot fences right up on the property line. I understand that. But that fence would be 20 feet from the pavement. It would be 14 feet from where the neighbor's fence starts, which is 10 feet forward of our lot line. And it is not an opaque 6-foot stockade or 6-foot vinyl fence. It is a see-through, we'll call wrought iron fence or something similar, also known as an estate fence if my client decides to do it in aluminum. We're looking.
Drawings of the proposed fence or not?
I don't, but I can certainly have Mr. Bloss submit them if the board saw fit that you need them. But I know this board has seen estate fencing or wrought iron fencing. You can clearly see through it. It would have the columns every 6 to 8 feet that goes down the lot line. And although it would only be 4 feet off the lot line, again, hammering it home, 20 feet from the street and 14 feet from where the neighbor's lot is. Moving to the garage itself, we're not asking for any FAR. We're not asking for any setbacks. We actually only have about 16%. I think it's 15.7% on the FAR. So with the garage itself, we're positioning the garage so that the front doors are facing to the east. So if you're on this street, which if the board's not familiar with it, it abuts a buffer directly across the way. And beyond the buffer, you've got the Hop Hog Industrial Park. But if you were still driving down Kings Highway and you were to look to your right or left at the subject parcel, you would not see the front doors of the garage. Because of that, you're going to be turning, as you come up the driveway, you're going to make a left turn into the garage doors. And to accommodate that, without bringing the garage structure in front of the bay window of the house. And that goes to the pictures I've submitted. You can see from the front of the house, you have a front door straight at you, you have a bay window to the left and a bay window to the right. If we were to move this garage further to the east to get closer to the setback, the garage structure would pretty much or entirely block that bay window. And it would take away from the, how should we say, symmetry of the front line of the house, where you've got a front door with 2 windows on each side, and then you have the garage off to the left. So overall, I think everything plays into the fact that I think this was mislabeled as far as a zone. I think if you looked at the nature and character of the area, we pretty much conform to it. The relaxations we're asked for are generally de minimis if you take into effect what Mr. Wexler pointed out was the zoning probably should be more in line with the AA instead of AAA. And then lastly, if this board were worried about precedent, which I know every now and then pops up in your minds, this is a unique situation. You do not find one property, one single lot encircled by a zone that's completely different, even though the lots are all similar. And that was my beginning argument, which is this is just wrong. The applicant here should not be subject to the requirements of a AAA when everyone else in the neighborhood has AA zonings. And I respectfully ask that the board grant the application in all respects.
Now to go to the source. Planning?
Before I start, I'd like to zoning is not something that is decided right now. It's true, we did have an, curriculum on that. Labeled as industrial one, brought to our attention, we corrected it to AAA, which is reflected on their CO. So AAA, to the best of our knowledge and all of our records, is the correct zoning for this property. That being said,
Why do you mean correct is that it's efficient, but you're not saying it's appropriate or the most accurate?
which is what I was going to say.
He was about to
With
say.
that being said, I do agree with him that residence AA is much more appropriate, and in fact, probably should be. It's not an actuality, but I believe it should be treated as such. With that being said, front yard, if you were to take it by those standards, would conform. The side yards would be 14 instead of 18, which is not conforming and is not necessarily supported by precedent, but I haven't gotten a chance to look into that yet. It is possible to do custom subdivision, both 14 for custom subdivision and setbacks. So it is possible they wouldn't have been foregrounded conforming, but that's. As far as the fence goes, the point is that taken there is no oversight right away here and that's consideration for. On the other hand, this is a proposed fence. It wouldn't be difficult for them to just put in a more conforming location. Specifically, I don't really see much reason to, even if it is mostly see-through. I don't think it reflects well on the record to have a 6-foot fence. They probably don't
Does
need
it,
to be moving it much
can we
more.
talk about that 1 second? Does it need to be in the driveway side triangle? If the edge of pavement is 20 feet from the property line, the property line is irrelevant in a driveway side distance triangle.
It is
Only,
relevant, it's just street pavement.
it's just, well, it's, so the the street pavement is 20 feet from the property line.
I'm not really entirely sure why that's addressed.
I-
Because then you're right, it should be 16 by 20.
Right.
So it's not clear to me why it's being called.
The legs of the triangle are 16, 20, and then the connector.
Right.
The property line's
Wait, so
irrelevant.
the fence is 20 feet from the road?
The property
From
line is
pavement.
20 feet from the road.
No, I
The
think-
fence
It's 4 feet further.
Right.
Just to clarify, no, Mary's almost, Ms. Passaro's almost right. The fence is being proposed 20 feet from the pavement, 4 feet back from the lot line, 20 feet total,
So the property line is
16 feet from the pavement.
So there's a
And
right
then
of way.
on top of that, I don't know what, anyone coming from that way to that way, is that, this side triangle's not gonna be an issue, because there's a 10-foot further, there's a.
It's a buffer.
10 foot further out.
But if it's new construction, why shouldn't it be conforming?
I think it will be. I think you don't have to.
To the side triangle, I think it probably will be, regardless whether it is or isn't.
Well,
Unless you're planning on widening Kings Highway and you're not.
no, and I don't, that's why I pointed out, if you're not familiar with this strip, I mean, if you're driving from east to west, on the left side is just a buffer from the residential zone to the commercial industrial zone. And again, the point that we have from Mr. Nicolia's comment, the neighbor to the east, if you're driving from east to west, his fence is already, forget just his fence, it's not like he's got a fence that protrudes beyond his property line. He has a fence that goes to the edge of his property line, which is 10 feet further from what we're calling, will be 14 feet from that.
So nobody driving
The
from
cement
east
makes
to
it
west, right? Did I get that right?
But
The
Yes.
strip Is even gonna see.
And not until they're right in front of it, and then they'd have to look to the right.
So there is a side triangle,
Yeah, but
but
it's
it's
a
not
strip of
being.
land.
Not by our fence, it would be by someone else's fence. And then the other part of that, again, is it's not opaque.
What I'm saying
But
though
they
is
get a
that
lot
anyone
of
driving that's
commercial
driving around that corner
vehicle
isn't
traffic
gonna see
here.
this. Because this fence is blocked, it's already blocking his view.
What I'm saying is we should just remove the call.
I don't want to be in a position granting.
It sounds like based on this, that it's not, should not be considered part of this. So we're pushing way. Solve the issue.
And the other thing is aesthetically, listen, everybody wants their fence, closer to the road. On this particular lot, if we were to move this back another, 11 feet to get to the 15-foot, code requirement, it's basically having a fence in the middle of your front lawn. Most people generally don't put the fence in the middle of the front lawn. Well, we could do that.
And it would be, let's say it was in a conforming location.
So how, we're going to zoom out. We'll talk about that.
Pretty much. Exactly, which, Mr. Nicolia, what I'm saying is it's almost like it will appear as though it's in the middle of your front lawn. And you're going to drive by and say, that looks stupid.
I don't care
Okay.
about what it is that you
Yeah, I know the
see.
area.
Well, you do, just not for zoning, yes.
Yes, right.
I know what that is, but Moscow, you know. But there's a lot of heavy traffic, so that's why we think they have the setbacks.
I believe, Mr. Vitaliata, there's an "and" in that sentence. I think if you remove the part of the sentence following the word "and," you still don't alleviate Mr. Wexler's consideration of the 4 feet instead of the 15.
Well, what we could do is we could delineate that in the decision that it is due to the excessive.
Excessive right-of-way. So just a little background from what I know. Anybody familiar with Hop Hog can help a little bit here, maybe. Kings Road and Kings Highway were the same road, I believe, at one point, and they become Rabro. So there was obviously an attempt when the residential subdivisions were being built to separate them. And that's why there's excessive right-of-way between Kings Highway and Kings Road. So I know Rabro, I think Rabro is a continuation of Kings Highway there. That's the industrial that
That's
you're
industrial
asking about.
little pocket.
That's on the other side of 111.
Yes.
Yes, it's on the east side.
So, Nick, if you zoom out a little more, maybe everyone will remember where this is. So I think that's why that there's excessive extra right-of-way there.
Right.
So Kings Road, the applicant's roadway to their house, is almost like a service road separated by a median from Kings Highway or Rabro Drive. So there is excessive. Yeah, it's,
Getting everything else.
yeah.
What's the issue?
I wish that there's.
The issue is that they're gonna have.
Right. When it's 15 feet off the street. I mean, they built this because it was commercial to the south. It was residential, so they created a buffer.
Can comply, you must.
But in reality, what he's saying is they really are complying.
I mean, typically, right-of-ways are about, it's about 16.
If we had a survey with the edge of pavement, it would have helped.
That would have helped.
And
Sketched it in red.
and that's why he did that, you know, we didn't get the surveyor to update it.
The typical right-of-way on a
It's
typical.
all grass.
Yeah, other than the driveway, yeah. And the one part, this is like a horseshoe driveway. The one side to the west is being removed, and the only driveway will be on the east side of the lot. And just to point out, again, we're looking not to have our fence so far offset from the neighbor to the east. We wanted to make, you know, a neighborhood continuity. So as you're going down Kings Highway, you've got the neighbor's fence out front, and then you've got applicant's fence.
To be clear on that, the neighbor's fence was granted. For the ZBA, it's a through lot. So that's their rear fence.
We're not sure really what the proposed fences will look like. Not- There's not a fence in that.
It has to be like.
Oh, the neighbors, yeah, this is very recent. It's like, this one actually.
6 feet.
And wait, so, and their fence,
Our fence would be 4 foot behind the line of their fence, what we're proposing.
Behind that, but what the code would require to be another 10 feet.
Another 11 feet back.
So it would basically be like just, middle of the property. It's ridiculous.
And our fence will not be opaque the way their beautiful white fence is. Well, solid is opaque, you can't see through. We did this once before, that's, well, I used,
Are you being obtuse?
Mr. Wexler, can I have your full undivided
it up.
attention, please?
What's Webster's dictionary say? Wexler's dictionary.
yeah, they give you an example. The windows are opaque with steam.
Flurry.
No, it's less, it's flurry.
Again, just really quick, normal right-of-ways are about 8 to 10 feet. You're supposed to have 15 feet from the right-of-way. So typically, a fence, 6-foot fence, would be about 4 feet. Most normal right-of-ways are. I'm not exactly sure how large the right-of-way is. 15 feet. So, they're proposing 4 feet. So as compared to most other normal right-of-ways, it would still be more than
I mean, I can't imagine that members of this board don't know what a wrought iron fence looks like. I mean, yeah. Yeah, there would be columns, yeah, so you know, the columns are every 6 or 8.
the driveway side triangle, it probably is such a small degree that it's away from pavement. I'm not even entirely sure that is it now. Again, I think that could just be addressed.
You could back a bus up.
Triangle, if it wasn't a problem, then it wasn't a problem. If it was a problem.
On the double A before.
Highlight it.
Well, wait a minute, do we have, but let's go back to the side yard, just to make sure we're correct. Is it the nature and character that they're 14 feet?
Because of the clusters.
If you click, you can't? White spruce? Darn it. Okay.
Have you been looking for it?
Okay.
It is very likely, I agree with you, I can't find it.
You would be able to provide us with a proposed fence. Move the site.
And show us the columns.
No problem.
Also, I'd like to know what the nature, seems like it's 14 feet, Mary knows. Let's just make sure it's 14 feet, what the houses are. No, the side yard.
Oh, it's side, oh, yeah, yeah.
Listen, if they're all 14 feet, it makes it easy. If they're compliant at 18 feet, now we have some issues. All right, so we'll research.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application?
Yeah.
Jay. Okay, have a motion to reserve, please.
Motion to reserve.
All in favor?
Submission of fence detail.
Submission of
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Why that parcel was AAA.
JFK.
Seems like it.
Somebody had sticky fingers?
Yeah, yeah, I need one for me too. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the same.
Number 556-24, Marlon Mendez, permission to erect two-story dwelling on lot having width of 49.42 feet instead of required 75 feet, and lot area of 5,488 square feet instead of required 7,500 square feet. Residence B District, east side of Monroe Avenue, 100 feet south of Montana Avenue, Bay Shore.
Yes, good evening once again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, Steve Bertolino, 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. Mr. Nicolia, to answer your question, no, I have no magic rabbits in any hat. And here's my song and dance on this one. What I've handed up to the board to please make part of the application was the County of Suffolk approval of this substandard lot to my client, the applicant. And if you turn to the second page, what is cited in here is a rendition of Local Law 3-2009, which is uncodified, which was then codified in the Suffolk County Administrative Code A40-4H. And in essence, what it says is the county is looking to take some of these tax parcels that they've acquired over the years for non-payment pursuant to the Suffolk County Tax Act and redistribute them in a fashion that promotes, and the understanding that we have zoning requirements in the municipalities, but promotes home ownership to first-time home buyers, workforce housing, whatever classification you want to put on it. It's to help those people who qualify to be able to buy a home and establish a residence within the municipalities within the County of Suffolk. This particular parcel was approved by the Suffolk County Legislature back in January 4th of 24, which is the letter I gave you, and it's required of the applicant to make an application to the local municipality, in this case, Town of Islip, to get the zoning approvals as necessary. I did give some thought about our esteemed Governor Hochul, who has in recent years decided that she may want to overstep the bounds of the zoning boards and push this affordable housing and more housing. But we can see that beyond the governor, even the County of Suffolk is looking at that as a laudable goal. Whether or not this zoning board agrees with it is what the magic I'm looking for tonight. So we have a substandard parcel where a 75-foot lot is required, and we've got just less than 50 feet, which is 59.42. I will not call this a pie-shaped lot, although it does taper off in the back to get us a little bit more conforming, but still not quite the 75. We come down to 60 feet. I believe there is some precedent in the area, and I could be wrong. I've driven around this area. It's just to the north of the Home Depot complex in Bayshore, just east of Brentwood Road. And there are a lot of ranches. There are some older homes that don't really have a designated style. There's some high ranches. There's some low ranches, one-stories. Most of them seem to be on 75-foot lots. A couple of them appear to be on some 60s. I believe 221 Montana Avenue was one, another one on 91 Monroe. I can tell the board that in keeping with the nature and character of the area, this single-family dwelling, number one, would be sewered. This is in the sewer district. Number two, would meet all setbacks required of the zoning code. So we're not asking for any FAR. We're not asking for any setback relaxation. It is just the front yard and the FAR, or the lot size, not really the FAR. And with that in mind, to comport, and I don't want to say comply because it's not a mandate, but to follow along with the Suffolk County Legislature is trying to do, we're asking that this board grant this big ask and big relaxation so that the qualifying applicant under the program can build a new home on this substandard lot that you may not have precedent for, whether on this particular parcel or anywhere else. What I can say, or in this area or anywhere else, what I can say is this. Precedent is important to this board. I know that, you know that, because it's brought up all the time. But when you have a situation where there's only one lot in the community, and this was the only lot I could see either driving around for about 40 minutes, making every left turn. I even went down the wrong way on a one-way street, which I shouldn't admit to, but I did. And I couldn't see any other vacant lot. So within 500 feet, 1,000 feet, even 2,500 feet, I don't think this board would ever be faced with another application in this area for this substandard lot. Now, whether it's myself or some other presenter coming forward and say, hey, look, my client just bought a lot from the county and it's over in Islip. You granted it once before, you should grant it here. Then the board has to ask itself, is that a laudable goal? Is that a goal that the town of Islip wants to follow? Is it something that you want to take this lot that wasn't on the tax rolls because it's county owned, that the county went through the trouble of auctioning off, approving through the legislative process, and say, you know what? We're going to appease the governor a little bit. We're going to appease the county government a little bit, and we're going to approve this and allow this applicant to build a workforce housing on a substandard lot. That's the only rabbit I have coming out of the hat. I can't offer you any precedent. I can tell you that it will have no adverse environmental impact. As far as nature and the character, as I said, this home itself will comply or look like many of the homes in the area. I can't say it's a de minimis applicant request. I can't say that we can accomplish it in no other way other than not to build. And if we don't build, the county code requires that the property revert back to the county. Now, I've never seen that happen before, and I questioned whether or not they would have to compensate the applicant for it. I would suspect that they would. On the other side is if the county decides that they don't want to take this back, client's not going to pay the taxes because he can't build it. That's not true. I mean, if it's not approved, I would agree with it. Because within 3 to 5 years, after the third year, you know the county is going to put it on the notification to the owner. You're going to lose the lot. And eventually it'll go back to the county. It'll come off the tax rolls. No taxes will have been paid. What benefits? You have a treed lot in the middle of the neighborhood that maybe shopping carts wind up there, maybe some beer bottles from the kids hanging out, whatever it might be. Or we can build a nice new home and let a qualifying applicant, have workforce housing that is sorely needed. Well, listen, I'm as upfront with the board as I can be. I don't have the normal arguments that one would make in front of this board. And Mr. Nicolia, to your point, I would tend to agree with you. Is it the charge of the zoning board to meet these goals? And if that answer is no, that's beyond my power to change. But I know when you have the governor of the great state of New York, and I didn't say the great governor, I said the governor of the great state of New York, and you have the Suffolk County legislature back from 2009, all trying to find a way to make this happen. This is an opportunity to the board to say, you know what? When we do have these substandard lots, whatever hamlet it may happen to be in, if we have an opportunity to make it work, and if, as in this case, we're not asking for those relaxations on setbacks, we're not asking to build a McMansion on a flag lot, I think maybe the board needs to consider the benefits to the applicant. When you say behind, what? Mm-hmm. Ever? He remembered it? Yeah. Well, I would tend to agree. I would think if the county has made the determination, they're the one that sets the tax maps on it. If they've made the determination and they were able to sell one parcel out and the other one, I would agree that that argument could be made. Be that as it may, we're faced with what we have. We have two separate parcels. The other parcel, as you're discussing, from 91, is now built. It's being occupied, hopefully happily. And all we're asking for is that we take this now single and separate parcel and put a family into it. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening.